I'm Joey Biondo, and my topic of expertise for Missouri's natural heritage was the native and invasive fish species of Missouri. And to start things off, we have the sturgeons. There are technically four species of sturgeon in Missouri, not all of which are considered true sturgeons, but they are described as ancient bottom feeders that use their barbels to detect prey. They are very distinguishable due to their elongated spindle-like bodies that are smooth-skinned, scaleless, and armored with 5 lateral rows of bony plates called scutes. These fish are among the most valuable of all wildlife resources due to their highly demanded caviar, and they mature much later than other fish, taking about 15 years or even more to fully mature, but they live longer than most other fish, living to be as old as 100 years old. And our first sturgeon is the lake sturgeon, which is also sometimes known as the rock sturgeon. It can grow to be as long as 8 feet and weigh as much as 300 pounds. It is found throughout the Mississippi and Missouri rivers, and it is an endangered species. Our second sturgeon is the pallid sturgeon, which can grow to be as long as 6 feet and weigh up to 100 pounds, and it too is an endangered species, and it is found throughout the Missouri River and in the lower parts of the Mississippi. This fish looks a lot like the next sturgeon I'll be mentioning, known as the shovel-nosed sturgeon, but the two can be differentiated from one another because the pallid sturgeon is longer and has a more pointed snout, and as you'll hear, the length and weight differences are much more in favor of the pallid sturgeon, with it being a lot more heavier and longer than the shovel nose. So moving on to the shovel nose, they are also sometimes known as switchtails because they have a long filament on the upper lobe of their caudal fin, and that sometimes breaks off in adults. The shovel nose can grow to be as long as 30 inches, but it rarely weighs more than 5 pounds. It is found throughout the Missouri and Mississippi rivers, and even occasionally in the Current River, which is near Doniphan, Missouri. And the shovel-nose is the smallest and most abundant species of sturgeon in the United States. Our fourth sturgeon, which is the one that is not actually considered a true sturgeon, it is just in the same order as the other sturgeon listed, is the paddlefish. And it is described as a shark-like fish with an elongated paddle-like snout, and fitting with the description of sturgeons in general, the paddlefish is referred to as a primitive fish and has undergone very few changes since it first appeared about 75 million years ago. This fish can grow to be up to 7 feet long and can weigh as much as 160 pounds, and it is found in the Mississippi, Missouri, and Osage rivers. Our next fish is the American eel, which is a snake-like catadromous fish that is covered with a mucus layer, and by catadromous I mean that it lives most of its life in the sea, but it comes to freshwater to lay its eggs. And with that being said, we only find females in Missouri freshwater, and in Missouri in general, because they are the ones that come to lay their eggs, and they actually die after they lay these eggs. And the females can grow to be as long as 33 inches, about twice as big as their male counterparts, but we will never see those males in Missouri. And these females are found in big rivers and major streams throughout the state, except for in the southwest region. Next up, we have what I call the suckers. However, they are unrelated. The first of which is the river carp sucker, and that is a fish that has a slightly arched back and is somewhat stout and compressed. It is a bottom feeder. It has very fleshy lips to help it succeed in that job of feeding from the bottom of its habitat, and it obtains its nutrients from algae, microcrustaceans, and planktonic plants and animals. It can grow to be as long as 25 inches, and it is found throughout the Missouri and Mississippi rivers, as well as their major prairie tributaries in the northern and western parts of the state. Then we have the white sucker, which is a slender, fine-scaled fish with a short dorsal fin, and its largest scales are near its tail fin. And this fish is known as a sucker, like I said, for the previous fish, because it has fleshy lips that allow it to suck up matter from the bottom of its habitat. And it can grow to be almost as big as the river carp sucker. The white sucker is maxes out at about 23 inches, and it is found almost statewide except for in the Boot Heel lowlands and the southeastern Ozarks. Then we have the big-mouth buffalo, which is a large-bodied fish with large scales and dark lower fins. It is similar to other fish that it is related to in that it has a long dorsal fin. However, it is different from its relatives in that it has a large, oblique, and terminal mouth. It can grow to be as long as 48 inches and is found almost statewide except for in the extreme southwest and south central regions. We then have the golden red horse, which is a fish that lives in calm and salty or sandy streams, rivers, and lakes. It is a bottom feeder that feeds on microcrustaceans, aquatic insects, detritus, algae, and small mollusks. It can grow to be as long as 17 inches, and it is found in the Ozark and northeast Missouri streams. Then we have the green sunfish, which is a thick-bodied fish that has a large mouth that has an upper jaw that extends to near the middle of its eye. And this fish is not only abundant in Missouri, but throughout the entire U.S., and because of its abundance throughout the entire U.S., it has been deemed an invasive species in some states because of its abundance. It basically dominates its habitats. This fish can grow to be as long as 10 inches and weigh up to 1 pound, and it is found statewide. We then have the gizzard shad, which is a member of the herring family, and it has a deep body with a silvery green color above, and it slowly fades into a plain silver below. And this fish also, like the green sunfish, negatively affects other fishes, although it does this indirectly. It's not trying to compete with these fish, it just does it, and it negatively affects its fellow planktivorous fish because, like the green sunfish, it just dominates its ecosystem with the food that it eats. It can grow to be as long as 14 inches, and it is most abundant in reservoirs and large rivers, but it occurs at least occasionally in every major stream throughout Missouri. Then we have the central stone roller, which is a brownish minnow that has small eyes and a lower jaw with a flat shelf-like extension that it uses to scrape algae from rocks. The unique thing about this fish is that it actually leaps clear out of water at frequent intervals, and if it's in large enough schools, the fish actually seem to do this in a continuous manner, so it's non-stop jumping out of the water if they're in big enough groups. And this fish can grow to be as long as 8 inches, and it is found almost statewide except for in the Boot Heel lowlands and in the extreme northwestern part of the state. We then have the shiners of the state. There are 4. Our first is the red shiner, which is a fish that is deep-bodied and laterally compressed. And something unique with the red shiner and also with most other shiners found in the state is that the males actually undergo a color change during their breeding season. And the red shiner actually goes from having its usual silver sides and white abdomens that it shares with the female red shiners to actually having a pink, purple, and blue sides, so a mix of those 3 colors with a red crown and red fins. And the red shiner can grow to be as long as 3.5 inches, and it is found statewide. Then we have the common shiner, which is a silvery or sometimes bronze-colored fish that has an olive back with a dark dorsal stripe. The male common shiners also undergo a color change during their breeding season, and they actually acquire a pinkish tint over their body and get small bumps on their heads. They can grow to be as long as 7 inches, and they are found in short, direct tributaries of the Missouri River in central and west central Missouri. Then is the golden shiner, which is also a deep-bodied minnow that has a greenish olive back and a faint dusky stripe along its midline. It is the only member of its genus, which is Notimagonus, and it is also actually the most widely pond-cultured fish in the United States, and because of that, it is primarily used as a bait fish. So we just breed them and use them as bait. They can grow to be as long as 8 inches, and they are found statewide. Then we have the Topeka shiner, which is a fish that has a shiny silvery color and a black colored stripe that runs along the side of its body. The Topeka shiner is actually only able to survive in water that is cold and clear, and that is why it lives in water that fulfills this niche year-round, and it can grow to be as long as 3 inches, and like I mentioned, because of its little habitat niche that it needs, it is only found in small streams in central Missouri. Then we have the fathead minnow, which is a temperate fish that has a dull olive gray color and a dusky stripe extending along the back and side of it. It is able to actually produce a distress signal known as Schreckstoff, and it can grow to be as long as 3 inches. And it is found in small prairie streams in northern Missouri. And then we have our 2 chubs, the first of which is the flathead chub, and it is slender and has a silvery color, small eyes, and a large, slightly oblique mouth. And the flathead chub is actually endangered in Missouri. And during its breeding cycles, the males acquire small bumps on its head and body. They can grow to be as long as 9.5 inches, and they are found throughout the entire Missouri River and some of its tributaries, as well as the portion of the Mississippi River that intersects with the Missouri's mouth and the Arkansas line. Then we have the creek chub, which is a slender, fine-scaled fish that has a black blotch on the front of its dorsal fin and a black spot at the base of its tail fin. And something unique about the creek chub is that its scales are actually unique to its needs, as they help the fish maneuver while also giving it protection. The creek chub can grow to be as long as 12 inches, and it is found statewide. Then we have the northern pike, which, while there are no other pikes found or native to Missouri, it is like other pikes found throughout the country and in the world, in that it has a duckbill-shaped snout, a large mouth with many sharp teeth, and a single dorsal and anal fin, both of which are positioned far back near its forked tail fin. And the northern pike actually plays an important role in regulating the numbers and maintaining the population balance of prey species in Missouri, which is one of the reasons it was initially stocked in our reservoirs. The northern pike can grow to be as long as 4 feet and can weigh up to 40 pounds, and it is native to northern and central Missouri, as well as the lower Osage River. Now we have our catfish, of which there are 4 native to Missouri. The first of which is the black bullhead, which is a catfish that has a dark greenish-brown coloration, a square tail, and a rounded anal fin. And the black bullhead actually has the ability to thrive in warm, low-oxygen, brackish waters. So, this fish doesn't mind getting in what I deem the dirty waters. And it can grow to be as long as 16 inches and can weigh up to 3 pounds. And it is found almost statewide, except for in the extreme south-central region of the state. Our next catfish is the blue catfish, which is a smooth, scaleless fish that has a deeply forked tail, and it's similar to the next catfish I'll mention, which is the channel catfish in that description, and it also has a straight-edged anal fin. The blue catfish is also actually the largest species of catfish found in North America, and similar to the previously mentioned green sunfish, it has been deemed an invasive pest in some areas because of the effect it has on other fish species in some states, because it has a low mortality rate and has a high success as a predator. And this fish can grow to be as long as 44 inches and weigh up to 100 pounds. And it is found mostly in central and eastern Missouri, in the Missouri, Mississippi, and Osage rivers. Then we have the channel catfish, which is the most abundant catfish species in the United States, as well as the most commonly targeted by anglers, with about 8 million fishers trying to catch it per year. The channel catfish has contributed to the rapid growth of aquaculture in the United States, which is just the growing of aquatic species as livestock for obviously food. And the channel catfish's popularity as food is the reason it is highly targeted, and why we breed it so often in aquaculture, just because people love to eat it and catch it. And it can grow to be as long as 32 inches and can weigh up to 45 pounds, and it is found statewide. We then have finally the flathead catfish, which is a large species of catfish that ranges from the northern United States to northern Mexico. So it spans about the length of the United States laterally, and it is the only member of its genus, which is excuse me if I mispronounce this, is the Pylodictis. The flathead catfish is a voracious carnivore that consumes large amounts of other fish, insects, annelid worms, and crustaceans, and it can grow to be as long as 45 inches and weigh up to 45 pounds, and it is found statewide. We then have the long-nosed gar, which is a primitive ray-finned fish that first appeared in North America about 100 million years ago, and as its reference as primitive suggests, it hasn't changed much since that 100 million years ago it first appeared. And the long-nosed gar is actually the most abundant species of gar in Missouri. However, despite this, its population has been in decline throughout the 20th and 21st centuries as a result of human-caused destruction of their habitats, or them themselves, and those include overfishing the long-nosed gar, destroying its habitat, creating dams that prevent it from, living throughout its entire habitat that it could possibly have, constructing roads that interfere with its habitat, and polluting the water that they live in. The gar can live to be up to can grow to be up to 60 inches and can weigh up to 30 pounds. And it occurs in every major stream in the state, but it is most abundant in the large reservoirs of the Ozarks. We then have the white bass, which is, on a side note, my grandmother's favorite fish to catch. And it is a silvery, spiny-rayed, elongated fish that has several horizontal streaks along its sides. And it is one of the most important game fish in Missouri just because people love fishing it or catching it. And it can grow to be as long as 17.5 inches and can weigh up to close to 3 pounds. And it occurs in the Mississippi River and its principal tributaries. We then have the Johnny Darter, which is a species of darter fish that has a straw-colored body and has what appear to be X, Y, and W-shaped markings on its sides. And unlike other fish who mate with one fish, obviously being described as monogamous, the Johnny Darter is actually not monogamous. And during its breeding season, the Johnny Darter's nest can contain up to actually 1,000 eggs, some of which the male Johnny Darters will actually eat if those eggs should develop any fungus on them. The Johnny Darter can grow to be up to 3 inches long, and it is found statewide except for in the lowlands in the south central Ozarks and parts of the western prairie areas. We then have our two, I would say, most closely related fish found in Missouri, which are the sauger and walleye. They are both described as slender, spiny-rayed fish, and they both actually have two separate dorsal fins. The sauger, although has a large mouth that has an upper jaw that extends to the hind edge of its eye, so it can be differentiated from the walleye in that respect. And it can also be differentiated from its relative in that it is generally smaller, and it actually has distinct dark blotches over its bodies and scales on its cheek. The sauger can grow to be as long as 15 inches and can weigh up to 4 pounds, and it is found in large, free-flowing streams. And the walleye has actually, due to artificial propagation of this fish, its genetic distinctiveness has actually reduced over about a century of us doing this. So it shows about a fair amount of variation across its watersheds. And the walleye can grow to be as long as 28 inches and weigh up to 8 pounds. And it is found in large streams throughout Missouri. Our final native fish species of Missouri is the freshwater drum, which is a deep-bodied fish whose head and body are actually sloped upwards, starting at its snout, going to the dorsal fins, and this gives it a humpbacked appearance. And it is the only member of its genus, which is the Aplodinatus. And the freshwater drum is also the only member of excuse me if I mispronounce this, Cyanidae family that actually lives its entire life in freshwater, as its name suggests. It can grow to be as long as 20 inches and weigh up to 40 pounds, and it is found statewide. Finally, we have our 3 invasive fish species of Missouri, which are all carp that are native to Asia. They were all brought to America as livestock at one time, but they broke free of the bodies of water in which they were confined, and because they are able to spawn very quickly, they were easily able to spread throughout the state. Our first carp is the bighead carp, which has a large scaleless head, a large mouth, and eyes located very low on its head. This fish is actually one of the most intensively exploited fish in aquaculture, and it can grow to be as long as 48 inches and weigh as much as 80 pounds. It is found in the Missouri and Mississippi rivers, as well as the lower reaches of their major tributaries, such as the Osage and Salt rivers. And the environmental effects of the bighead carp are that they are considered highly destructive to native species because they outcompete these native species by eating all the plankton of the habitats, and that results obviously in the deaths of many of these native fish. Then we have the black carp, which is actually the only member of its genus. Once again, excuse me if I mispronounce this, Mylopharangodon. And it is similar to the previous fish I mentioned, the bighead carp, in that it is also widely cultivated for food. However, unlike the bighead carp, the black carp is also used in recipes for Chinese medicines. And the black carp is easily the biggest of the invasive carp species in Missouri, because it can grow to be as long as 5 feet and weigh up to 160 pounds. And it is found in the Mississippi River system, including the Osage River, as a result of a high water event in 1994 that allowed it to get into that area. The environmental effects of the black carp are actually considered pretty much more dangerous than the effects of the bighead. And the next fish I'll mention, the silver carp, because the blackhead carp actually targets mollusks as a part of its diet, and we have a lot of critically endangered native species in the United States, so it is a threat to those critically endangered fish. And because of this reason, any transporting or introduction of black carps within the U.S. has been made illegal. And then finally, we have the silver carp, which is also, like the other two species, a large part of aquaculture, and it is actually the second most cultivated fish in aquaculture, only being outproduced by the grass carp, which is a type of carp we do not see in Missouri. And the silver carp can grow to be as long as 48 inches and weigh up to 45 pounds. It is found in large rivers and lakes throughout Missouri, and very similarly to the bighead carp, it is considered highly destructive to native plankton-eating fish, in that it outcompetes these native fish, and once again, obviously results in many deaths of these native fish. So thank you for listening to my presentation. I apologize for not being able to give it during the spring break trip, and I hope you were able to learn something through this presentation. Thank you.